Well, kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to this interview today. This is hopefully a series of conversations that we start to have between Toi Whakaari and our alumni and our wider arts community. My name is Vaughan Slinn. I'm a senior tutor at Toi Whakaari. I work primarily in screen practice and creative practice at the kura. And today we're incredibly lucky and blessed to have our alumni, Matt Saville, with us. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Kia ora.
Matt is a writer and actor, and he has just directed his first feature film, Juniper, which, when does it come out now, mate?
Well, it looks like we're opening on the 28th, and just in New Zealand, and then we'll sort of hit Auckland later on in November when lockdown allows people to go to the cinema. So we're going to release now. We had to pull the last release because of the lockdown, obviously. But yeah, not too far away. So
what's the experience been of that? Must have been incredibly distressing trying to release your debut feature amidst all this uncertainty.
Yeah, I mean, it was distressing, but I think that the other side of it is that it wasn't halfway through. So, you know, there's publicity build up, but quite often if the audience is cut off halfway through, that can really kill it. So so we're hoping that you know, we're lucky that there's a lot of cinemas outside of Auckland, and then we're hoping it'll build momentum and we'll smash Auckland in November. But it's great that it can, you know, you guys down there in Wellington are looking good. So yeah, it's exciting. It is strange to have your film released without actually going to see it in the cinema with an audience. So it screened in Italy the other day, and you know, it was nice to hear that people really enjoyed it, and you know, but I want to be there because you know, watching your film with other people, you know, it's the time where you can experience it again, because you tap into that collective unconscious of the audience, and you can see it outside of cuts and dialogue and sound design and, you know, things like that. Yeah, totally. But I'm excited. Yeah, I'm glad it's opening.
I thought maybe it's probably good for people who don't know about the film. Maybe could you give us just a little overview of kind of what the film's about?
Yeah, sure. Well, essentially, it's slightly autobiographical in its inciting incident, but then it deviates from there. But my grandma came to live with me for the last 6 months of her life, and I'd never really met her. She broke her leg, and she was an incredibly intelligent woman who drank close to a bottle of gin a day. And she came and lived in our house and terrorized us with a electronic bell, and you know, and so I kind of formulated this fictional story around a self-destructive teenager whose alcoholic grandma comes to live with him. And I suppose it's a bit of a love story, you know, a platonic love story between those two characters. And my grandma had an amazing life, and I was up to no good at boarding school at the time. But my grandmother, you know, she was at the Spanish Civil War, and she had done all these amazing things. And so I married her backstory a bit, and studied sort of famous female war photographers, you know, and journalists like Martha Gellhorn, who was at the Spanish Civil War at the same time my grandmother was. So this woman has lived a life. She's incredibly intelligent and drinks a lot, but also she sort of one of the underlying themes of the story is like our tagline is "Life, don't water it down." She's lived a life, and she's also you know, one of the reasons we've cast, well, we're lucky enough to get the amazing Charlotte Rampling, is that this older woman she's always had this power over men as she grew up, because of her beauty and intelligence, and something my grandmother had. So as she's got older, and she still feels like that, she still has that kind of power. So yeah, so that's kind of the rough idea of the story. Awesome. I won't tell you the whole arc because you got to go see it.
No spoilers. Yeah, no spoilers. Yeah. And was it a long kind of development process? Was this something you sort of wrote years ago, or was it quite fast from kind of the way you wrote it and then into production, or what was the sort of journey there? It was
5 years development with into production. I actually wrote the first draft of it probably when I was at Toi as well. So that's a long time ago. It's just a project that, you know, you sort of write what you know, and it's kind of like, in a sense, using aspects of your own self or of past. It's a bit like, you know, if you can't afford the novel, it gives you a good the novel to option, which gives you all that sort of backstory and things, which is so helpful to have depth in work. So it's been bubbling away for ages, and I've had other films in development and short films and so on, and then it just felt like this was the right project to do as a first feature, you know.
Did you always think that right from the beginning, was it always something that you wanted to direct, or was there a period where you were thinking about just writing it and handing it over to someone else?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest, I've always wanted, you know, I came out of Toi and I went and did my master's in screenwriting and wrote a few plays and so on, and I saw myself as a writer first, and I liked the idea of working with directors, and I'm actually writing projects for other directors at the moment and looking for projects to direct that I won't write, but the journey towards that came through, it's just, you know, one of the key things about story is everyone just seeing the final vision. And I've got to be honest, I was a bit nervous. So, you know, directing's hard, you know, like you got to hunt, like in Juniper, it's a small, low budget film, but in some ways it's a big budget or a reasonable budget for New Zealand, but it's still 100 people that you're guiding. It's money's burning. You know, you've got to get things in 5 weeks. You sign contracts to say that, you know, they'll fire you the moment they feel like you're not. You know what I mean? Like, there's all sorts of things and pressures, and that's actually a great challenge. But I was afraid of it. And through writing other projects and sometimes seeing that quite often what stalls projects is the visions of the collective people aren't going in the same direction, you know. And when you write and direct something, that's actually one problem that's already solved. You know, the director talks to the writer and it's pretty quick. So really it's about finding that alignment with the right producer. And I was lucky enough to get Desiree Armstrong, you know, who really believed in the script, and then Angela Littlejohn came along. But so when you're all in alignment, it makes things easier. And then I suppose through having a few experiences like, we're almost there, I almost had a film finance, but it just kind of, you know, the momentum wasn't there, or people weren't quite heading down the same path. I thought, I watched Animal Kingdom, David Melchot's film, and watched him talk, and he had just he basically got that up off a lovely short film called Crossbow, which went to Venice. And I thought, I'm going to make a short, and just, I know I haven't been to film school, but I understand story and I love acting. I've got I know how to work with actors, I believe. And I just set myself a few rules, and the rules were, you know, minimal characters, natural light. And so I made this film called Hitchhike, which, you know, went around the world and did really well, and made that for a very small amount of money. But, you know, it was a bit of a test to myself. I kind of had to prove myself that, you know, that I could do it. And yeah, I'm really proud of that. And the other, so it was kind of like doing those short films to sort of feel like, yeah, I can do this. It's the right thing to do. And of course they were successful. So that was helpful for you know, my confidence and that kind of thing. Yeah. And I love working the collaboration of directing or working with actors, you know, like yourself. So that's that was actually, I found something I really enjoyed once I got past the fear of it. yeah.
And of course, you chose a pretty formidable actor to direct your first feature film with, in Charlotte Rampling. I mean, that doesn't kind of, I mean, that's kind of amazing. How was that?
Yeah, it's one of those things. There's two things that, look, she's amazing. And, you know, I got a text from her the other day because she's just won an award for being a great actor in the film. It's very daunting, but actually, you just got to realize that people are people. You know, they might be famous or something, but actually, they're still people, and they want to. You know, there aren't many awesome roles written for, you know, women once they get past their 70s. So there, and I'd always had the ambition to, you know, to get her. And she connected with the script. So getting her was hard because she read the script and went, I love it, I'll do it. And then she went, why would I want to go to New Zealand? You know, and so there was a kind of a thing where it was like, well, how do I convince her to come to New Zealand? And, you know, how do I know I'll be able to work with her, you know? So I went over to France and wooed her, and but we hung out for 3 days. And actually, it's just a human thing, you know, you just are open about what you're nervous about, and you talk about the film, and she wants to be collaborative. So my way of working is, you know, if I work with actors, I don't want them to just do what I say. I want them to bring their opinions, as long as the opinion is about the story and not about ego, you know, that's the key thing. And she, so when the conversation becomes about the thing and making the thing good, and when, you know, the arguments or the you know, like, you don't just say yes to everything, you're actually talking about it, it sort of takes it out of the space of being daunting. But of course, once she said yes, and I knew that we could work together, and then she was coming, you know, of course, yeah, there was a bit of like, oh, jeepers, you know. But, you know, she's very human, and she works in a way. And we also had another grad, Martin Sokas, who's quite a famous
brilliant actor.
Yeah, and, you know, and so I wanted to get him involved, and the essential thing of working with those people and working with everyone is to just get their buy-in, and to know that, you know, with actors quite often, like, if you're in smaller roles or whatever, you come in and you're just trying to get it right, and you kind of don't want to do that. Ooh, someone's FaceTiming me. That's very strange. End. Decline.
You've gone off camera, but there you are. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, no, I went off camera and someone FaceTimed me and it came through on my phone. So I'm not quite sure what I was saying
about Martin, and then sort of get
yeah. So essentially, you just want to be able to talk to people, and you want people to have the confidence to have those debates, but just about the story and how you make the story better. And with you know, actors like Charlotte and Martin, you know, it's not like they're worried about whether they're doing the right thing, or they don't bring those sort of that nervous energy. They just bring a kind of intelligence, and you discuss it, and you try to make sure it's about the thing. And if you know what the thing is, then you're in a good place. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine that both Martin and Charlotte were really strong mentors to the younger cast that came through. Was that a kind of cool dynamic to have, these sort of, you know, generational actors and these newcomers?
They were. I mean, I think it's fair to say that Charlotte fell in love with all the boys, and you know, she had a great time. And I think that's part of the reason why she did the film, where she wants to work with younger people, because, you know, it's good for you. And she certainly mentored and did her best to make George feel comfortable. You know, like one of the things we did, and it was Miranda Harcourt's suggestion, was we got George to write a handwritten letter Charlotte as George himself, who plays Sam in the film. And he wrote her a handwritten letter, and he was honest. I'm nervous, and I can't wait to work with you, and I'm so excited you've done all this work, blah, 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 blah. And she wrote back to him in a handwritten letter, and they had this kind of, the film set in 1992, so it kind of was just a way of building a connection and world, and they just had this, he's got a letter from Charlotte Rampling, but, it just starts it early, and it's a nice way to look and work at things. Yeah.
That's cool, isn't it? Because so often, film's such a kind of fast, as you were saying before, we're under such sort of time pressure, and it's building those relationships, those sort of human relationships that the film really ultimately depends on, does take time, and it's so often we sort of take shortcuts to that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's all about money as well. We had no rehearsal in this film. I'm really proud of the performances. I think you'll go and see the film and you'll go, Charlotte's great, George is great, everyone, but there was no real rehearsal time, and we only had 5 weeks to shoot, and then COVID hit, so there was never a chance of any pickups. That being said, the film leads itself to that. I mean, there's a lot of scenes where Charlotte's in her chair drinking gin. There's not, the blocking is the blocking's pretty simple when, yeah, building those connections, and we did do some work on that, where we tried to get those boys connected. We tried to get them to live the life. We did pre-stuff with Charlotte and George and so on. So yeah, and that comes through on screen.
Yeah,
as a director, is finding the right people to inhabit the role, and that's the great thing about feature films or film. Is you get to find the right people. We had Miranda Rivers helping casting. We had Vicky Wildman who helped us as well, and they just, Miranda just helped me find some amazing people. And you're trying to put together, there's a financial side to things, but you're trying to put together a puzzle with a film like this, because it is a love story between these two characters. There's an ensemble piece of acting going around it, and they all need to fit in. And we were lucky, and I'm really I'm really proud of the actors and what they did. We had Edith Poor, she's stunning. Kiwi girl, plays this English nurse. You've got Marton, and you've got George really stepped up, and then you've got old Tane, who was your student last year. He's fantastic. Carlos and Cameron, the lads, and I think Aaron Wilson, who went to Toi, is a fantastic. He plays this doctor, and he's great. So we're really lucky with who we got.
That's awesome, mate. I wonder do you mind talking a little bit about kind of your process as a writer? I'm really curious about how you go about your projects, and I'm also really interested in how your training as an actor, because I know, obviously you did the screenwriting MA, but how has your knowledge of acting and acting pedagogy and performance process influenced the way that you create and write character? First about the writing, and then I'm interested in the directing too, but maybe as a writer first.
Yeah, well, I think it's a tough thing. I've been watching a lot of the masterclasses lately. That masterclass podcast thing, you can download it and watch how other people. And it's really interesting when you see the big players play. A lot of, sometimes you kind of realize that a lot of what they do is very instinctual, and they don't really know. They can articulate it, but they're giving you little bits of gold, but they're also letting you into their process. And for me, it's being an actor and being a writer, a very, like my English mark in 7th form was pretty, I think my English teacher, did a cartwheel, I heard, when I got a B. So, so it's very instinctual for me. I've learned, you learn about all the structures, and you learn, that obviously conflict and is important, but for me, a lot of it comes from having those sort of outside structures and knowing them, but also just imagining myself in those places, or seeing it's about the excitement of the idea. Like someone says something, like I'm working on this project at the moment, and it just comes from a story my uncle told me, and I was like, that's cool. Juniper just going, wow. My first meeting with my grandma, walking in, I'd never met her before, and she was like, come, rings the bell, come in, turn around. I met her once when I was like 5, but she was over in England and whatnot. Come in, turn around, you dress like crap, buy yourself some clothes before you see me next. I was like, wow, that seems like an interesting character. So it comes from characters, from ideas about story. But when, I'm inside a scene and writing it, I do, especially in the first time, I feel it's those improvisation classes. I feel like I'm in it, and I imagine myself in it, and I'm transported. And then after I've got through that, or through those ideas, then I go back and apply craft. And sometimes, there's a certain feeling sometimes, and you feel all these things, and then you go back and go, oh, it doesn't really work. But it's actually putting yourself in there, and I suppose living in imaginary circumstances and then putting that on the page. So, which is an acting thing. We try to live in imaginary circumstances, live truthfully. Yeah. Does that help? Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And has it I mean, obviously your experience as an actor undoubtedly affects the way that you direct, but do you have any kind of key kind of directing philosophies you like to think about? You've already talked about the importance of creating that kind of human connection with the people that you're working with, and allowing them to kind of make offers, having arguments and discussions about the scene and the story. Is there any other kind of philosophies you have there that you like to do, or ways you like to work?
Look, for me, nothing. As sometimes when you're directing, things just go, and you're ideally, for me, you're trying to set it up so it can work without you, but you've got to have that clear idea of vision. So it's just about, you've got to do the work. You've got to be totally prepared, and you've got to be able to listen to the people who are smarter than you, and steer them along your vision, because so heads of department, costume, I'm not going to be able to dress Charlotte Rampling better than she can probably I don't want to say dress herself, that sounds weird, but then Jane Holland can direct. She knows that, but I know the overall emotion and the feeling, and I know that this character starts off in control, loses a bit of control, and then I know the journey that she's going on. So I want better eyes. You want better eyes to help you with that. The same goes with editing. I see the performance, and I know the performance I want, and I have no ideas, but I also want a good editor who goes, I don't believe that moment, and who tells me that moment's not what you thought it was. This moment over here is better. And then we'll have a bit of an argument about it, and the truth in the film will find itself. You 100% need to know where you're steering the ship, but I think you do have to be, especially for someone like me, my skills are in the vision of it. It's in working with actors, all those kinds of things. I do have a strong idea visually. I've had to develop the skills of communicating better with DOPs around that image, because my background is in acting and writing. So you've got to know your weaknesses and find the people who who are better than you, but also make sure that you can communicate with them and that they're on the same vision as you and they're bringing everything to that, So there's a lot of things to think about, but ultimately you don't have to know everything as the director. You do have to be able to steer the ship. Yeah,
So I mean, I worked with Jeff Murphy on a project, and his advice about directing was, he was like, well, among other things, he was saying that, his primary job was just to essentially empower everyone else to do the best job that they could, and to get out of the way a bit, like he was just like, at some points as director, you got to get out of the way and let people do their job. And some points you need to come in and fight for them, or sometimes you need to give them space, or sometimes you need to steer them back into direction. But ultimately it was to empower everyone else around you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. There is, it is a heavy weight to wear. Look, one of the big things that a lot of people talk about, the creativity of directing, but the other thing is, like with this film, money burns. You've got to get this amount of shots in a day. And you've got to think strategically about where the most important, where to weight, the story. And and that comes through knowing the story, what's emotionally important about it, how much time you want to spend on it. All those things come into consideration. They're hard, and they're not always obvious, choices. Having a really good first AD that you can communicate with is really important. And also the thing is, like the director generally doesn't have the most time experience on set. Your crew are there all the time. They leave your film, they go off on someone else, they go off on something else. So they're always feeling comfortable. You make the film for 5 weeks, it's intense, then you spend a year editing it or whatever it is, it's so these other people bring all these sort of like everyday things. You bring the passion, Yeah.
So because of the restraints of the budget, did that mean that you had to do a lot of quite specific kind of pre-production work and making sure the film was incredibly planned out? And did you have any time with the DOP to sort of experiment on the day, or were you sort of under that sort of pressure where there was a clear kind of shot list and set of what you had to get each day?
Well, that's what pre-production is. You work out that, or you do have to be very clear and very specific. There is, look, with Marty, he's very instinctual. I'm very instinctual. Marty Williams was the DOP. What's great about him is he's always looking. He knows light. And we're always looking for the best light in this film. It looks amazing. So it's a mixture of being incredibly planned and being able to change it up on the day based on what the gods give you. You have to be open, and you have to, but you also, if you can, if you get a bit maverick, you can lose time. So it's that's all I can say on that, really.
Totally, mate, totally. I was wondering if maybe here's a left field question for you.
I like those ones.
Well, I just whenever I invite guests in to talk to our students, or especially if they're alumni, I always go, what would your advice be to an actor in training right now? Someone who's learning about what it takes to be an actor, learning about the craft of acting, but also learning about themselves as an artist. And what would you say to yourself, knowing now, like what would your advice be, or to someone training as a kind of 21-year-old?
That's a hard question. I'd give some practical and some it's probably like lots of things. Obviously, understand who you are, blah blah blah. I don't know. There are a couple of practical things that I can think about, and this is if you want to maintain an artist, is you don't really know when things are going to shift, or when those opportunities are going to come for you. I recommend, some people want to create their own work. I've always wanted to create my own work. If you want to create your own work, keep going for it. Keep trying have some way to support yourself through that, because the hard thing about this is getting the dollars, so and it's not like have a backup plan, but it's also find a way to tie in some kind of other vocation or whatever, so you can be comfortable and you're not desperate. If you're an actor, stay ready, stay fit. There's a couple of times where there was some roles I could have gone for, but I didn't quite have the six-pack. I didn't quite have the six-pack. Keep your body and all those things in shape. Don't make assumptions. One thing I've learned is not to make assumptions. Like, I've had projects with companies that have fallen over, and I thought, I'll never work with them again, and then I end up working with them again. It's like, so try not to take it personally, man. This is if you want to be an actor, definitely try not to take it personally. One thing you're going to learn, this sucks, you're going to learn resilience. But the cool thing is, it does work out and you can do good stuff. But I think there are certain if you just be a bit pragmatic about things, you can have a long career, and then if things really break, that's the icing on the cake, I think. Look, for me, the biggest thing for me at drama school was doing those monologues. I've always wanted to create my own work. I came out and toured plays around the country, that kind of a thing. That's always been my thing, and I've seen and don't get me wrong, I've done some acting roles, and it's been really fun when I've done it. But the biggest joy I've ever had, to be honest, was, I think, when I took this play about the boxing play I did years ago about this Kiwi boxer, and I remember being in it and not enjoying it, but then being in it, writing it and putting myself in it, and finding the experience quite stressful, and then writing another play and not being in it and watching it and watching the audience and it working and getting a huge sense of joy, more joy out of that than the exhilaration of acting. Not to put you off from acting. Acting's great.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I think you're so right, though. I always think that in this country there's very few of us that can earn a living solely from acting, and it's important to have those other kind of strings to our artistry and our skill set, and I think you're a great example of someone who's really been able to kind of take your own destiny into your own hands by being a creative as well as an actor,
Yeah, I just like telling stories, and I like I like that they'll impart something that people will walk out and feel like they've had an experience. And it's a weird thing, it's not like about learning something, but it's about connecting to our humanness, and if you can create, I like to create work that people will walk out and so they've had dealt with grief or something like that, they'll see that in it, but also feel kind of released and realize that experience is human, and that other people go through that. I think that that's kind of that's really important to me, and even it doesn't matter whether if it's a comedy or if it's a drama. I'm not saying that everything has to be worthy, but good comedies tap into the human condition. They're really funny. They make us laugh and they hit us in the heart. Good action films exhilarate us or whatever, and you know what I mean. So it's all the same thing. It's about emotions. Cool.
That's maybe that's a beautiful way to end our conversation.
No, does it have to stop?
Well, it doesn't have to.
No, I don't.
What else you want to do?
No, I don't.
Well,
does it have to stop? Subject. No.
Well, hey Matt, thanks so much for your time with us today, and we're really proud of you, mate, as a Toi Whakaari alumni. It's really awesome to see what you're doing out in the world, mate.
It's great, and it's looking forward to coming back. And it's so lovely that you're there, and that Tanya's the head of school. She's just awesome.
Yeah.
And she was my boss at Downstage when I was ushering at Downstage. So it's kind of cool. I'm really looking forward to coming back, stepping into that place, and looking at the photos on the walls.
Still there, man.
People, yeah, exciting. Yeah, great.
Well, I'll stop the recording now, and thanks very much.
Cool. Thanks, man.